Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Sudanese groups form a military alliance to topple al-Bashir's regime. Morocco's Islamist parties divided over election boycott. And the EU censors its own film on Afghan women prisoners. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
دعمت الحكومة السودانية حكومة جنوب السودان بتقديم الدعم لتحالف عسكري.
The Sudanese government has accused South Sudan's government of providing support to a military alliance aimed at toppling the regime of President al-Bashir. It is worth mentioning that an alliance called the Sudan Revolutionary Front was formed and includes the People's Liberation Movement North, the Justice and Equality Movement, and the Sudan Liberation Movement. The latter two are active in the region of Darfur. According to a released statement, their aim is to topple the ruling regime in Sudan.
Scenes of war and violence have made a comeback and are once again familiar in Sudan after 5 years of relative calm. A war is raging along the border between the two parts of Sudan, from its most eastern part to its most western. And so the struggle takes a new facet as the People's Liberation Movement North, Khartoum's former ally, signed an agreement with Darfur's armed groups to establish a military alliance to topple the government of Bashir. The crisis first began in the South Kordofan state in June, just a few weeks before the state of South Sudan was declared. And what seemed to observers at the time as a limited military conflict quickly spilled over to the border Blue Nile state, where the People's Movement won the local elections. At the time, Bashir decided to dismiss the elected governor of the state and form a military council to run the state. These events cast a heavy shadow on the relationship between Sudan and South Sudan. The official Sudanese position turned antagonistic after taking control of the city of al-Kurmuk at the beginning of the month. Al-Bashir accused the South of deceit and betrayal in his first speech in the city of al-Kurmuk, a statement rejected by South Sudan. The tension is not limited to military fronts in Sudan, as the political opposition in the north is demanding the formation of a national government and a committee to revise the constitution following the South's secession. This comes amid frequent popular protests in many Sudanese cities, to which the Sudanese government has still not responded. The issue causing concern for many in Sudan is represented by the deteriorating economic situation following the secession of the South and the loss of oil revenue. All these developments are causing many to fear that Sudan is slipping into a widespread armed movement that reproduces the crisis that previously led to the separation of the state. Adel Marjoub, BBC.
In Morocco, Al-Adl wal-Ihsan movement and two political parties, al-Badl al-Hadari and Ummah, decided to boycott the upcoming parliamentary elections, demanding radical reforms dedicated to the people's sovereignty. Meanwhile, the Justice and Development Party and the Party of Renaissance and Virtue announced to run in the elections.
تنقسم الحركة الإسلامية بين تيارات مؤيدة وأخرى معارضة.
The Islamic parties are divided over whether or not to participate in the elections. The Justice and Development Party, which has been running in parliamentary elections since 1997, has managed in the past 10 years to become the second largest political party in the country. Despite the campaign launched against the party due to its position on electoral laws and its demand to implement certain articles of the Constitution, the party is running in the parliamentary elections and insisting it will grapple with corruption and despotism.
Our battle aims to confront these corrupt powers in the country. Unfortunately, there are indeed influential parties controlling and sometimes even dominating the political scene.
The Party of Renaissance and Virtue, established in 2005, is betting on winning these elections to conduct political and social reforms. The party proposed a program based on Islamic principles, respecting human rights and battling corruption.
The party relies on Islamic laws. Second, it suggests alternatives to the traditional banks by replacing them with Islamic banks. Third, it demands linking responsibility with accountability in combating corruption and the corrupt.
Contrary to the Justice and Development Party and the Party of Renaissance, the two banned parties, al-Badil al-Hadari and Ummah, believe that running in the elections will only contribute to the country's political absurdity, prolong the despotism, and suppress the movement for change.
The message of our election boycott is clear. We want to say nothing is going well in this country. We should reform, correct, and change the political and constitutional performance in order to build an era for a new Morocco, a democratic Morocco, and a Morocco for organizations.
The Al-Adl Wali Hassan movement says these elections are the same as before and will not change the political system. According to the movement, change will not happen through elections with participation from political parties that are known for being loyal to the state, but only through radical reform that makes the people the master of authority. Nuruddin Ujar, Al-Alam, Rabat.
The Jordanian monarch, King Abdullah II, has urged Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to step down. Meanwhile, Turkish Foreign Minister Ahmed Davutoglu said that his country would take a firmer stance against Syria. The European Union reached a tentative agreement to expand sanctions on Syria. Russia opposed the suspension of Syria's membership at the Arab League, and China urged Syria to comply with the Arab Initiative to resolve the crisis.
I would believe if I were in his shoes, I would stop.
I believe if I were in his shoes, I would step down for the sake of my country. I would step down and make sure whoever comes behind me has the ability to change the status quo that we're seeing.
On the ground, the death toll caused by the gunfire of Assad's brigades has risen to 16. However, the security crackdown failed to prevent the Syrian opposition from taking to the streets in massive demonstrations under the slogan Syrian Prisoner Day, Dawn of Freedom Rising. Meanwhile, the Baba Amro neighborhood witnessed heavy shelling by Assad's army.
The popular uprising in Syria is increasingly gaining momentum despite the regime's security crackdown on protesters. The opposition took to the streets in a show of defiance against the regime's killing machine, which has been unleashed on Syrian civilians demanding freedom and the departure of President Bashar al-Assad. In response to a call by the Syrian opposition, massive demonstrations were staged today under the theme Syrian Prisoner Day, Dawn of Freedom Rising, amid notable student participation. The protesters demanded the downfall of the regime. Protests also erupted across various cities as thousands of Syrians took to the streets to welcome the Arab League's resolution. In response, Assad's brigades opened fire on the protesters. This news comes 2 days before the Arab League will officially suspend Syria's membership at the Council. In Hama, massive rallies were held despite the heavy deployment of Assad's brigades in an attempt to prevent protesters from staging sit-ins demanding the downfall of the regime. In Homs, Assad's brigades randomly shelled Muslim and Christian residential neighborhoods. In response, a massive demonstration was launched from the city's church, demanding the downfall of the regime. Also in Homs, thousands of mourners held a funeral procession for the fallen victims, killed by the gunfire of Assad's brigades. While the regime was expressing its commitment to solving the crisis, its brigades heavily shelled the Bama Aron neighborhood in Homs.
حمص بابا عمر 14/11/2011 قصف المآذن قصف المسجد.
Assad's gangs also stormed the town of Khirbat Ghazala and Daraa in an attempt to prevent the residents from taking part in the general strike. The residents defied the security escalation and continued to stage acts of civil disobedience, marching for the second consecutive day. The strike shut down all schools, government offices, businesses, as well as both public and private transportation systems. In compliance with the Arab League resolution, the Free Syrian Army announced the defections of 2 military officers at the ranks of colonel and lieutenant colonel. The officers revealed that hundreds of Shabiha have been deployed from the area of Gardaha to attack diplomatic missions in Latakia.
I hereby announce my defection from the Syrian Arab Army, which has become a gang run by the regime.
الحر رياض الأسعد لأن يكون هناك موالون في لبنان لهذا النظام السوري الذي لم يترك أثناء احتلاله لبنان طائفة أو حزب أو مدينة أو قرية إلا.
Commander of the Free Syrian Army, Riyad al-Assad, expressed regret over the presence of regime loyalists in Lebanon. During the Syrian regime's occupation of Lebanon, many Lebanese sects, parties, villages, and cities have suffered from its crimes and oppression. Al-Assad added that the abduction of opponents and Syrian activists on Lebanese soil is being carried out in coordination with certain Lebanese groups who have sold their conscience. By the same token, Al-Assad expressed gratitude to the Lebanese movement for hosting the Syrians who fled the brutality of the Syrian regime's killing machine. He added that the Lebanese provided displaced Syrians with aid and protection from the axes of betrayal, most notably Hezbollah. In another related development, Al-Assad said that several buses were seen entering Syria from the Lebanese territory, with members of Hezbollah and other factions on board. This news coincided with massive demonstrations that were staged to welcome the Arab League's resolution on Syria. The opposition said that most of Hamas victims were killed in the demonstration, which Assad's brigades forced the residents to hold in support of Assad, and which quickly turned into an anti-regime protest, with the participants chanting slogans demanding the downfall of the regime and its president.
The UN envoy to Yemen, Jamal bin Omar, said he is preparing to visit Taiz province to inspect what is described by the opposition as human rights violations and crimes against protesters.
Meanwhile, the Yemeni opposition joint meeting parties apprised Jamal bin Omar that the president should sign the Gulf Initiative before he starts discussing its implementation mechanisms.
المشهد اليمني يبدو مكررا. ملايين في الشوارع.
The Yemeni scene seems to be repetitive. Millions in the streets demand the president and his family relinquish power. The security forces' behavior is similar to what is happening in Syria. There are snipers, and protesters in hospitals are being targeted with heavy weaponry. The Yemeni political opposition gave UN envoy Jamal bin Omar a new task: submit a report on what the opposition described as human rights violations against civilians in Taiz and other Yemeni provinces.
في تعز وبقية المحافظات اليمنية.
He informed us and promised us that he would visit various squares and hospitals in Taiz. He said he will definitely follow through with the implementation of the UN resolution.
لا تريد المعارضة اليمنية أن تترك.
The Yemeni opposition does not want to give the president any chance to use implementation mechanisms of the Gulf Initiative as a new topic of negotiations to prolong his stay in power.
Unfortunately, the Yemeni people are paying the price for this crisis. Prices are raised, the electricity is cut off, and roads are blocked.
Even if the president signs the Gulf Initiative, many still have doubts. He may once again evade his obligations, perhaps because Ali Abdullah Saleh understands that as of now, him stepping down is not an imminent request by the West or the regional powers.
Now, in Libya, NTC forces have arrived in the capital, Tripoli, to restore order as fighting has raged between rival tribes in the western part of the city. More now in this report.
This is the village of Imaya, west of Tripoli. For 4 days, fighters from the rival Zawiya and Washafana tribes have been contesting a strategic military position, Base 27, on the main highway to Tunisia. Over a dozen fighters are believed to have been killed so far in the struggle for Base 27. Each tribe blames the other for the clashes. Now the NTC's forces have arrived in the capital to impose order on the situation.
Today we have a very good situation. We some problem with some people. Now it's finished.
Yesterday there were people killed.
No.
No?
This is some people doing that. Will do from this problem to big problem only. That's not true. Nobody killed. Nothing. Not having this.
No?
Yes.
Yesterday?
Yes, I'm sure.
But in Zawiya's hospital, we heard a different story.
Yesterday?
Yes,
no. You can go to the hospital here and to see there is a casualty. One of them is my relative. And there is died people from both sides, I told you. This is the truth. If we want to build a good country and a democracy country, and the law is the over for all the people, we have to say the truth. There is dead people, there is wounded people.
How many dead yesterday?
3, I hear. 4, yes.
Here, in this hospital?
Here, and I hear about 3 there. What's the surprising thing? It's in both sides. They will say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Both sides, here and there. I hear it from both sides.
By now, Zawiya's fighters had reinforced their position with tanks and armoured cars. Their commanders showed me video footage that they claimed showed posters of Gaddafi and pre-revolutionary flags still flying in Base 27. They believe that elements of the Washafana, traditionally supportive of Gaddafi, still harbour sympathies for the old regime. Back at the Washafana checkpoint, the situation had become more volatile. This is the road to Zawiya and the contested military base. Earlier this checkpoint was open. We were told the situation was calming down, but now civilian traffic is being turned back towards Tripoli. There's a no-man's land of about 15 kilometers between the two opposing sides, sporadic rifle fire between the two positions. Each side is reinforcing their forward lines. The situation here is definitely deteriorating fast. This Washafana tribesman accused the Zawiya of firing Grad rockets at Washafana villages and advancing 25 kilometers beyond their traditional territory. Libya's revolutionary government is keen to defuse this flashpoint, but in the security vacuum between the fall of the old dictatorship and the elections promised for 8 months' time, long-suppressed tribal feuds seem to be surfacing once again. Aris Roussanos, Press TV, Tripoli.
The Russian foreign minister has criticized the International Atomic Energy Agency for its latest report on Iran's nuclear energy program. Sergei Lavrov says the report contains nothing new and provides no evidence that Tehran is developing nuclear weapons. The UN nuclear watchdog last week accused Tehran of conducting nuclear weapons research. Lavrov said the report was apparently aimed at paving the way for further unilateral sanctions against Iran. He repeated Russia's opposition to any new punitive measures. The UN Security Council has imposed 4 rounds of sanctions on Iran. Tehran has rejected the IAEA's accusation as baseless and politically motivated. It insists its nuclear program is purely civilian.
In an effort to jumpstart the stalled peace process, representatives of the International Quartet are in Ramallah and Jerusalem today, holding separate talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders. Israeli officials said there are no expectations for a breakthrough at this time because the Palestinians continue to insist they will not return to negotiations without an end to Jewish settlement building. Israel rejects that demand. The peace process has been on hold for over a year after talks broke down on the issue of settlement construction. Last month, Quartet envoys held 1 round of separate meetings with the two sides, and Washington's envoy, David Hale, met last night with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas ahead of today's discussions. Time magazine reports that the Israeli spy agency Mossad was behind Saturday's explosion at an Iranian missile base near Tehran. Time quotes a Western intelligence source telling the magazine that the Iranian claim that the explosion resulted from an accident should not be believed. The source also claimed that more sabotage is being planned to impede Iran's ability to develop and deliver a nuclear weapon. 17 Iranians were killed in Saturday's blast, including Hassan Tehrani Muqaddam, who is a key figure in the Iranian nuclear program and architect of Iran's missile defense. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei attended Muqaddam's funeral. Defense Minister al-Barak said today that he did not know the reason for the explosion. And when asked about damage caused to Iran, he said, "I don't know, but the more the merrier." President Barack Obama said the U.S., Russia, and China agree that Iran should not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons, but just how to go about preventing Tehran from doing so remains elusive.
I did was to speak with President Medvedev as well as President Hu, and all three of us entirely agree on the objective, which is making sure that Iran does not weaponize nuclear power and that we don't trigger a nuclear arms race in the region. That's in the interests of all of us. In terms of how we move forward, we will be consulting with them carefully over the next several weeks to look at what other options we have available to us. The sanctions have enormous bite and enormous scope, and we're building off the platform that has already been established. The question is, are there additional measures that we can take? And we're going to explore every avenue to see if we can solve this issue diplomatically. I have said repeatedly, and I will say today, we are not taking any options off the table.
The European Union decided not to broadcast a film on Afghan women who are behind bars on moral-related charges. The EU made the decision out of concern for the safety of the women prisoners portrayed in the film.
نظرة سريعة داخل عالم سري.
This is a quick look inside the secret world of the special women's prisons in the Afghan capital, Kabul. Half of the women prisoners in Afghanistan are accused of what is called moral crimes, such as escaping forced marriages or domestic violence from their husbands. This woman was raped, and when she reported her case to the police, she was accused of committing adultery.
I submitted an appeal when I received a 2-year prison term and it was enforced. Then my appeal was rejected and the sentence was extended to 12 years. I didn't do anything. Why am I being punished with this harsh sentence?
حكت جولناز ما تتعرض له من خلال فيلم
In the documentary film, Gulnaz gave an account of what she endured, but the EU did not allow the broadcast of this film in fear of her life. On the other hand, human rights workers are urging the release of these reports from Afghanistan.
I
think it's very important that people understand.
It's very important that people understand that there are these horrific stories that are happening now, 10 years after the fall of the Taliban government, 10 years after what was supposed to be a new dawn for Afghan women.
So 10 years have passed, yet the so-called new dawn for Afghan women has still not come. There are many women like Gulnaz who have been robbed of their lives and voices.
Not only does domestic violence show no mercy toward women in Lebanon, but the country's laws do them no justice either, and the issue remains extremely private. My colleague Afif Al-Jardali reports.
The spring of Arab women is manifested by Lebanese women breaking the wall of silence. They cried out, "No to violence against us." The stories of many battered women are revealed day by day to confirm the need to enact a new law that protects women and takes into consideration Lebanese social standards. 30-year-old Sama recounted her story and the experiences she had with her husband. She endured marital rape, continuous violence, and threats of depriving her of her 4 daughters.
I would take the kids to the bedroom. He would say, "Take them away. I don't want any kids here." I would put them to sleep, and when they would fall asleep, he would be watching TV. He would be watching pornographic films. I would be sleeping when he would be done watching these films, but he would come harass me. I would ask him to leave me alone, but he wouldn't accept. He would say that this is his right, and I will give him that right, whether I like it or not. There was no one to protect me. When I called the relevant parties, they said, handle it yourself. I demand all the ministries to stand by us and help us. The same way they have children and seek to protect them, the same way they protect their female relatives they fear for and want to keep safe, they should protect us as well.
After central Beirut witnessed a protest 2 weeks ago that came in response to a call by a Facebook page titled "No to Violence Against Women," the issue became public, given that the page has over 13,000 participants.
We created the page in March 2010 to honor Lebanese women on Mother's Day and the International Day of Women. There are violations of human and women's rights in Lebanon. The second issue, which is both funny and sad, is that some ministries are looking to find new holidays, including the Day of the Alphabet, and I don't know what else. Instead of Parliament looking for holidays to acknowledge, they should look for laws that protect Lebanese women and protect Lebanese children.
In light of the ongoing debate over a law that would protect women from domestic violence, the plan continues to be held hostage to the legal opinion that views the law as fragmenting the essence of family. At the same time, implementing the law is hindered by the fear of religious men and devotion to the power of men. Afif Al-Jadarli, New TV.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Wincoat Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.